Alright, let's go. Hello, people. Good morning. Another beautiful day. Yep. Hope your five senses work. Hope your health and strength is good. Yeah. What's up, gamers? Sub-Zero in the building. If they're playing around here. Look. Let me ask you, gamers, this. Does the video game industry stop because you buy a studio? Like when EA was buying all those studios, did the video game industry stop? Okay. Did the video game industry stop moving when Microsoft bought ZeniMax Bethesda? No, it didn't. Okay. So if the video game industry didn't stop between EA and ZeniMax Bethesda, what makes you think that the video game industry is gonna stop because Microsoft buy Activision Blizzard? Okay, the video game industry is like the ocean. It keeps moving. It keeps growing. Okay, keeps moving. Just like the ocean waves, the video game industry is like this. Okay, and to you PlayStation fans, that filed that lawsuit against Microsoft. Let me ask you this: did competition stop when Sony had exclusive rights to Street Fighter V, and Street Fighter V was only on PlayStation 4 and PC? Did competition stop in the fighting game community? No, it didn't. Okay, why? Because you got Namco making Soul Calibur 6 with Tekken 7. You had Tecmo with Dead or Alive 5 and 6. You had Arc System with Guilty Gears and Guilty Gear Stride and Dragon Ball Z Fighters, and then you have SNK with King of Fighters and Samurai Shodown. Did competition stop? No. So your lawsuit against Microsoft is fake. Tell me something. What happened to Killzone? What happened to Resistance? What happened to SOCOM? What happened to Crisis? And what happened to Lost Planet? How come those games are not as consistent like Activision is with Call of Duty? You sure you want to go to court and challenge that Microsoft deal? Because I could beat you guys in courts any day. But anyway, listen to this. Sony Exclusivity deal excludes Final Fantasy VII and Silent Hill 2 Remake from Xbox consoles. It says here, Microsoft claimed that Sony preventing games from coming to Xbox. And they just proved it. Anyway, says here, the back and forth between Microsoft and regulators continues to produce new and exciting information from the gaming industry. Recently, it was revealed that 75% of the public favors Microsoft. In the CMA recent document, 75% out of 100, along with 98% of the shareholders. Yeah. Anyway, says here, Microsoft response to the CMA has revealed another bit of information that could help swing the situation in the company's favor. Microsoft claimed that Sony has signed exclusivity deals for games like Final Fantasy VII Remake that requires excluding the Xbox platform. I understand that situation pretty well, because Nintendo and Squaresoft had a falling out, right? Before Squaresoft became Square Enix. Everybody knows Squaresoft for Final Fantasy, right? And they were on Nintendo. When it comes to the Nintendo 64, it was a cartridge versus CD situation. The industry was trying to go to CDs. Nintendo made the Nintendo 64, which is a cartridge system. And Final Fantasy VII, Squaresoft and Nintendo had a problem with the Nintendo 64 being a cartridge system. So Nintendo and Square had a falling out. Then Nintendo and Sony made a deal where they were making a CD system for the Super Nintendo, and that was the PlayStation. Nintendo didn't like it, and then Sony and Nintendo went their own separate ways. Sony took the PlayStation, took it back to the drawing board, fixed some things on it, brought it back out, and then Sony now took Square. Sony and Squaresoft became friends now. They're like this, partners in crime. So Final Fantasy VII from Squaresoft put the PlayStation on the map, and then the floodgates were open. And when I say floodgates, I mean floodgates. It's like the entire gaming industry used the PlayStation to take their anger out on Nintendo because they went with cartridge. And when I say floodgates, I mean floodgates. For every game that Nintendo was dropping on the Nintendo 64, Sony was dropping 6 to about 10 games. That's how bad it was. Anyway, let me keep going here. Where am I at here? Says here, exclusivity strategies are not uncommon in the game industry, and other market participants have access to their own content. Both Sony and Nintendo exclusive first-party game rank among the best-selling in Europe and worldwide. Current Sony exclusive content include prominent first-party titles such as Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, and Spider-Man. In addition to having outright exclusive content, Sony has also entered into arrangement with third-party publishers, which requires the exclusion of Xbox from the set of platforms these publishers can distribute their games on. Some prominent examples of these agreements include Final Fantasy VII Remake, Square Enix, Bloodborne from Software, the upcoming Final Fantasy, Square Enix, and the recently announced Silent Hill 2 remastered Blooper Team. Nintendo exclusive content includes well-established, global, famous, and iconic franchises such as Super Mario, Zelda, Xenoblade, Pokemon, and Animal Crossing. Says here, the third-party exclusivity is no new concept in gaming industry. PlayStation and Microsoft have shown several examples of this partnership with certain developers in the past, but the industry seems more favorable towards PlayStation in recent years. It says, however, third-party exclusives are usually limited to a particular time. Games like Shadows of Tomb Raider and Deathloop were time console exclusive, but eventually made their way onto other platforms. Microsoft's recent claim means that titles like Final Fantasy VII Remake and the recently announced Silent Hill 2 Remake will never be on Xbox console unless Sony agrees. While Xbox is usually a more Western-centric platform, many users will inevitably miss out on these great titles due to these agreements. Furthermore, this makes the Xbox case look much better than before. PlayStation's role in preventing games from the Xbox platform contradicts many of the company's recent arguments. Microsoft has also included Bloodborne in the third-party exclusive games list. Unlike Final Fantasy and Silent Hill, Sony owned the rights to Bloodborne IP, and it makes sense that the game would be exclusive to PlayStation. Then it says Final Fantasy VII Remake was among the most anticipated game of last generation. The upcoming Silent Hill 2 remake also looks extremely promising, but Xbox users might never get a chance to play these games on their platform of choice. What do you think about Sony exclusivity deal? Do you think the acquisition will succeed? Let us discuss in the comments. Well, 75% of the public agrees to Microsoft, with 98% of the shareholders. So that is a real good sign. But this article really exposed a lot of things about Sony. Sony like to, do their dirt and then hide their hand. They like to point their finger, but the thumb but their thumb points back at them. So, you know, Final Fantasy 7, I understand that situation really, really well. You know, it's because of Nintendo screwed up with Square when they went with cartridge, and then Nintendo turning down the Sony CD system, the PlayStation, and to me, I think Sony did that deliberately as a way of getting into the game industry. But that's a different argument for a different day. But once those two things happened, you know, it put Final Fantasy 7. PlayStation was born, and Final Fantasy 7 put PlayStation on the map. And once Final Fantasy 7 came out, man, the floodgates were open. So all kind of games start coming. That's when you saw you always see that cinematic intro on the game before you can even play it. You know, and then, you know, Konami followed suit with Metal Gear and Silent Hill. Namco followed suit. Capcom followed suit. And the floodgates were open on PlayStation 1. You best believe it. So, but I understand that. But when it comes to this Activision Blizzard deal now, like they say on let me turn on this light here. Oh, turn on the light here. Like they say on Modern Warfare, no, Black Ops 4. First come, first serve. So Sony got caught up in the exclusivity, and that's their Achilles heel. They got caught up in the exclusivity of Call of Duty, but that contract runs out. Activision Blizzard now is having problems all over the place, and common sense didn't even tell Sony, like, look, maybe we need to focus on Activision Blizzard instead of paying so much attention to Call of Duty. They didn't pay attention to Activision Blizzard when they were going through their turmoil. And that's where Microsoft come in now. Microsoft saw that Nintendo and Sony did not step in to help Activision Blizzard when they were going through their problems. And I guess Microsoft was just sitting there like, really? So you guys are not going to help Activision Blizzard? Aren't they a part of the gaming community, the gaming family? Really? You guys don't care about these people? Okay, we'll step in. And stepped in they did with 70 billion. And got them. And once Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard, it exposes Sony now, because we know about Sony and Squaresoft, now known as Square Enix. Enix used to make Dragon Quest, but now Enix and Square merged, so now it's Square Enix. So now, once the deal was done, I guess people thought everybody knew about Sony and Square Enix. I mean Square Enix, and everybody thought that was Sony's bread and butter, Final Fantasy, but it wasn't. It was Call of Duty. It's like Square Enix was like a force field over Call of Duty. We'll put Final Fantasy 7 on the front lines to make you think that's our bread and butter, but it really isn't. It really was Call of Duty. So once that contract has an expiration date, and then you don't own and you didn't even step in to help Activision Blizzard. Look, if they would have stepped in, then Microsoft could have never bought Activision Blizzard. But since they didn't step in now, and Microsoft saw that, and Nintendo didn't do anything, Microsoft is like, oh, so you guys don't care about Activision Blizzard, huh? Okay, we'll take care of it. And take care of it they did. A sense of urgency kicked in. Microsoft swooped in, got them. And once they got the deal now, once they did that, and 98% of the shareholders agreed to the deal, 98% of the shareholders agreed to this, and now you got 75% of the public agreeing to the deal now, it exposes Sony now with the Call of Duty situation. So you have to blame Sony for this. You know, you have to blame Sony for this. So now Sony's running to the European Union, the CMA, and all that. But now the CMA flipped the table on them, saying they can't find nothing here. And then here comes the Federal Trade Commission with their nonsense, trying to make up a fake lawsuit. And then you got these PlayStation players now trying to stop filing their own fake lawsuits. So it's like you all got to blame Sony for this. They did not care about Activision Blizzard. They only cared about Call of Duty, a video game. They cared more about a video game than the actual people that work inside of the buildings. That's what this all boils down to. That work inside the building of Activision Blizzard. Sony only cared about Call of Duty. They never cared about the employees at Activision Blizzard. And Nintendo, on the same note, did not care about Activision Blizzard either when they were going through their problems. Sony and Nintendo never stepped in. Microsoft did. And when Microsoft did, they saw that as an opportunity to snatch Activision Blizzard, and that's what they did. So everybody need to blame Sony and Nintendo for this. They cared more about video games than people. Just saying. Just saying. You know what I'm saying? So, the exclusivity deal now with Silent Hill and Final Fantasy not coming to Xbox. I understand the history between PlayStation and Square Enix, Squaresoft now known as Square Enix, and PlayStation and Konami because of Silent Hill and Metal Gear. I understand that whole situation. But far as the Activision Blizzard deal goes, Microsoft is infinite % right for buying Activision Blizzard. Why? Because Sony and Nintendo never cared about Activision Blizzard. If they did, they would have stepped in, and that would have prevented Microsoft from buying Activision Blizzard. But since they didn't step in, and Activision Blizzard is in the open, Microsoft saw that as an opportunity to buy that company. And they rushed it. Sense of urgency. Move. Go. That's just like that. And they did it, man. So, all these lawsuits now, it really means nothing, man. You know, the deal is done because once you have like 98% of the shareholders agreeing to this, and then you got the employees at Activision Blizzard agreeing to this, agreeing to the deal is done, man. You know what I'm saying? The deal is done, and the game industry does not stop just because you buy a game studios. It doesn't stop. It keeps going. It keeps growing. Okay? So, this lawsuit, man, that's brought on by the FTC and these PlayStation players, they're a bunch of hypocrites because when Sony was hitting Xbox with all those time exclusive deals, Microsoft had to find ways to get games on Xbox. Okay? Microsoft had to find ways to get games on Xbox. Okay? Just like this art. And some of the time, it says time exclusives. That means you got to wait like a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 7 months, a year, 2 months. That's what time exclusive is. So the Xbox fans have to wait. So Phil Spencer is like, I guess, you know, don't worry about it. We got this. We'll take care of it. And they found ways to get games on Xbox. And once Activision Blizzard situation popped up on their radar, and Microsoft being the eagles that they are, when eagles sense prey, they swooped in with their claws out more like this and got them. So it's Sony's fault, man. You know what I'm saying? Sony cared more about Call of Duty than people, man. That's what this whole situation boils down to. Sony and Nintendo care more about video games than the actual people that make video games. Just saying that. I'm just telling you. They cared more about video games than the actual people that make video games, man. And once they never stepped in, man, Microsoft saw that and said, "Oh, really? You're not stepping in? PlayStation, you're not. Sony, you're not stepping in? Nintendo, you're not stepping in this? Y'all don't care? Okay, we'll take care of it. And they just came in like this. Game over. Yeah, but the game industry does not stop though. Just because Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard, man. The game industry keeps growing. New studios are being formed every month, man. So a bunch of people could get together and make a studio, man. So the game industry don't stop, man. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, but this article exposed a lot. Exposed a lot what's going on here. And you got the public now supporting Microsoft. 98% of the shareholders, 75% of the public agrees with Microsoft, dude. Period. Yeah. And that's the way it goes, man. And what I learned from this Activision Blizzard deal is this: when you get an opportunity, you seize it. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Anyway, latest video for y'all to enjoy. Nice talking to you people again. Chris, still a Star Wars and Star Trek thing. Or dissection. Peace.